Cell parts and function. Let's think of the cell as a factory engineering and building machine parts, or maybe a game, or a vehicle, or a piece of equipment. We're going to look at a plant cell here. An animal cell is similar, except it doesn't have a couple of cell parts. The plant does. And keep in mind that in a multicellular organism, cells are specialized and may not have all these parts at any one time, and that a cell may make and disassemble parts as needed for a specific function. So let's begin with the cell wall. It's pretty self-explanatory. The cell wall provides the physical shape of the cell. This is crucial in plants and fungi, though fungi cells are otherwise more like animal cells. But in plant cells, they would otherwise be just a blob of squishy green goo without the cell walls. With cell walls, they can stand up and grow upright. See my other video on turgor pressure for how this works. The cell wall then is like the metal girders, the bricks, and other components that give our factory its physical shape. This is easy to see in a standard light microscope. Right inside the wall is the membrane. In a plant cell, you can't really see this because you're just seeing the wall. You can, in an animal cell, sort of see this by just seeing the outer boundary of the cell, but you can't really see the structure of the membrane with a light microscope. The membrane controls what goes in and out of the cell. It does this by being selectively permeable, and therefore small molecules like water, carbon dioxide, and oxygen freely flow in and out. While it uses special doorways and openings made of proteins, it can control by opening and closing and specializing to move larger or polar molecules in and out. So in our factory, this would be analogous to the loading dock doors and windows, or even the shipping and receiving department of the factory. Filling the space is the cytoplasm. We'll say that it's like the air and the HVAC system in the factory in the cell. It's the medium that holds the cell shape and provides means for salts, water, and other nutrients to be moved throughout the cell. Now let's jump to the control center, or the nucleus. We'll put it here in the center, though it doesn't have to be. This is most analogous to the management or the administration center or the office of the factory. It directs the actions and functions of the cell by regulating and constructing and deconstructing amino acid sequences, which will become functional proteins in our factory. The process of constructing the desired object is the same as a cell producing a specific protein. It does this through DNA. We can compare the DNA to the design schematics for whatever the factory is making. Inside the nucleus is the nucleolus, and that's where this DNA is kept safe. In our factory, that can be like the safe or the file cabinet where the design schematics are all kept. Maybe think of that entire safe or file cabinet as the cell's entire set of chromosomes. Now there's a lot of them, so they're organized into files. Those files might be like each of the chromosomes in the cell, 23 pairs in a human cell. The nucleus, or the management team, decides what parts are needed and so can pull the proper files to start the production process in the cell. This is protein synthesis, and it's through protein synthesis amino acids are assembled into proteins that the cell directs and conducts all of its business. I have another video titled Protein Synthesis that goes more into the detail of this. So we'll do a very short overview here as we describe the cell processes. First, the cell transcribes a DNA code needed to make the specific amino acids into a copy called messenger RNA. This is like making a copy of the schematic. This allows the original to be safely kept in the office. The messenger RNA is then transported out of the office or the nucleus to the assembly line. It leaves the nucleus and travels via the endoplasmic reticulum, which are like the hallways or maybe the electronic messaging system, to get the plans to the assembly line. Here, the messenger RNA is translated into a series of amino acids. The transfer RNA brings in amino acids available in the cytoplasm and aligns them to the sequence of genetic code on the messenger RNA to put the proper sequence in order to build the protein. This is like the worker or automation that puts the pieces together to build our product. This all happens in the ribosomes that are spread along the endoplasmic reticulum and also throughout the cell. You can see the nucleolus in the nucleus in a light microscope, but the rest of these parts are probably too small to see in a light microscope. When the protein is assembled or the product is made, it has to be finished up, so maybe a coat of paint or final packaging to send it out of the factory. The sequence of amino acids has to be properly folded into the right shape for the protein to work as proteins do their work based on how they are shaped, and how that then allows them to interact with other molecules. This is done at the end of the assembly line, or maybe by the shipping department, or the factory in the cell. This is called the Golgi apparatus. This too is likely too small to be seen in a standard light microscope. All this work produces some waste. The lysosomes move around inside the cell and cleans up by identifying what waste needs to be sent out of the cell. But mostly it recycles the pieces left over so they are still available in the cell. Some amino acids mostly, so they can be used for the next round of protein synthesis. Some of these Golgi apparatus might be visible in a light microscope. All this requires energy to happen. This is the work of the mitochondria, another cell part you can often see in the microscope. This is where cell respiration occurs, and the cell burns sugars for energy. See my other video on cell respiration for more on this process. This then is like the power plant or the electricity source, or maybe a generator in the factory. There are two additional cell parts that are not in animal or fungi cells. First is the chloroplast. It has the chlorophyll and is responsible for absorbing sunlight and converting it into glucose. See my photosynthesis video for a deeper look into this process. This could be like solar panels on the factory, or maybe solar panels in a solar farm the factory gets electricity from as a fuel or energy source. And lastly is the contractile vacuole. All cells have a vacuole of some kind with the primary purpose of storing water. This could be like simply the plumbing system or the water cooler in the break room in the plant. The contractile vacuole also stores large amounts of water to help maintain the cell shape in a plant cell. The contractile vacuole can actually take up most of the space of the cell when it is full of water. My turgor pressure video explains this in more detail. Also, for plants to conduct photosynthesis, they require a lot of water. So in our factory, this contractile vacuole and the water in it might be analogous to water used in the factory to cool the computer system or the energy system as part of the production process. There can be a lot going on in a cell, but the overall function of a cell and how it does its job in the larger body system is through the use of proteins that are used to build structure and more often as protein enzymes to communicate with other cells in the body to make them turn on or off other protein processes.